The 600 horsepower 2017 Nissan GT R Nismo might be the most powerful factory-built Godzilla to ever wear number plates, but that doesn't automatically make it the best ever. You can't just jump into a Nissan GT R and bounce the thing. You can't. It's wrong, and it should not be tolerated. A GT R is a car you have to build up to and take your time with. You have to respect it and earn it. This is exactly what's running through my head as I approach the positively hostile-looking 2017 Nissan GT R Nismo for the first time. I mean, seriously. Look at those near-time attack spec carbon fiber front and rear bumpers and side skirts. And check out that massive rear wing. Sure, the front and rear Nismo badges confirm the model's motorsport pedigree, but they're hardly the elements giving the game away. Not least of all when the thing rolls on japtastic, rigid black, 6-spoke 20-inch, lightweight rays, forged alloy wheels and mega serious, model-specific Dunlop NR1 tires, anyway. Hold your drooling gaze a little longer, and you can't help but take note of those awesome gold-painted 6-piston front, 4-piston rear Brembo calipers, and associated 390mm and 380mm fully floating, cross-drilled two-piece rotors. So, the 2017 Nissan GT R Nismo look the part. But, is a giant dinosaur running amok through downtown Tokyo still a scary concept? You bet. With nerves and excitement building, the time comes to crack the door and slide behind the wheel for the first time. As the eye is treated to red and black carbon fiber battery Kairo bucket seats, a neat Nismo instrument cluster, and a plethora of motorsport-centric Alcantara, push the GTR's red engine start button and it's the ears that are soon assaulted, and not in a good way. Despite a hand-built titanium exhaust system and two new high-flow, larger diameter turbochargers, borrowed from the GTR Nismo GT3 race car, the Nissan GT R Nismo road car doesn't sound great. Familiar to those who have ever spent time in a Nissan GT-R and positively alarming to those who haven't, at idle the GT-R's cabin fills with the unique sound of a slightly intimidating whine and slightly concerning mechanical whir that sets it apart from any other car on the market, and leaves you in little doubt about its focus and potential. It's at this particular point in time, with the low-frequency grinding and higher-frequency buzzing doing their thing in the background, you're presented with three options: leave everything in normal, shift the transmission into its highway-friendly save mode and the suspension into its mildly laughable comfort mode, or toggle each of the GT-R's adjustable parameter switches up and into their most aggressive R modes and test your skills and personal levels of commitment and bravery. As I said at the beginning, you can't just jump into a Nissan GT-R and bounce the thing, so we go with option 2 to try and ascertain how this mostly mental road-going race car handles the everyday. And, you know what? Despite all the carbon fiber, the menacing presence, and that wing, the Nismo isn't actually some completely ludicrous, track-only monster. Drive it around town and it doesn't feel like you're driving a race car on the street. Overall build quality is of a high standard, outside noise is largely blocked out, and everything generally feels solid and well put together. In short, it doesn't feel like some stripped-out, caged-up, rattly, kit car racer with number plates. It feels, in a lot of ways, like a normal car. There's little doubt the super stiff Nismo tuned springs and custom-developed 3-mode Bilstein Damptronic dampers prefer smoother roads to rougher. But, spend more time with the car, and you can at least start to appreciate the efforts of the suspension's willing comfort mode. Given how firm the ride still remains, however, be ready for passengers hopping in cold to quickly question the softer mode's purpose. To prove a point though, flick the suspension into R on a bumpy stretch of road and the contrast will soon become obvious to all and sundry. To be clear, this is a Nissan GT R Nismo we're talking about here. If you're after a soft, supple, and luxurious ride, go buy something else. This car is meant to be firm. It's been intentionally designed from the ground up to be firm, So, yeah, it's firm. Move on. Plus, frankly speaking, a bigger issue is the fact the GTR Nismo simply doesn't feel like a car attached to a sticker price of $299,000, before on-road costs, $72,000 more than a Nismo Fettled GTR Track Edition and $110,000 more than an entry-level GTR Premium Edition. Performance is one thing, but come on, $300,000? That's more than $4,000 up on the highly limited BMW M4 GTS and only $80,000 off a McLaren 570S. Further, the GTR Nismo is mechanically noisy and audibly clunky, the infotainment system isn't up to scratch, and the backseat door plastics are scratchy and seriously low rent. New the 2017 Nissan GT-R Nismo may be, climb inside and it's still patently obvious you're in something based on a 10-year-old car. There's also no blind spot monitoring, no forward collision alert, no adaptive cruise control, no autonomous emergency braking, not even an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, and the manual example that is there wouldn't look or feel out of place in a Nissan Micra. The red-stitched Nismo embroidered leather and Alcantara Recaro bucket seats are supportive and super comfortable, even after hours behind the wheel, but don't go searching for any heating or cooling fanciness, because it ain't there. And only the backrest has electric adjustment. Fortunately, with its hand-assembled twin-turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 engine wound up to produce 441 kilowatts of power at 6,800 revolutions per minute and 652 Newton-meters of torque between 3,600 to 5,600 revolutions per minute, the 1,762 kilograms GT-R Nismo is blisteringly fast. Although Nissan hasn't said just how fast its latest creation can sprint to triple figures, know that this most hypo of stock GTRs has 22 kilowatts more power, 20 Newton-meters more torque, and 26 kilograms less weight to play with than a regular GTR, a car that's previously been attached to 0 to 100 km per hour claims as low as 2.7 seconds. Move past the introductory stage with the Nismo. Engage beast mode by illuminating all three red R logos beneath the climate controls, and what grabs you even more than the car's straight-line rapidness, is its remarkable agility. Noticeably more nimble and responsive than a standard GTR, particularly in the front end, it's here you begin to realize the true depth of changes made to this almightily proficient car. What sort of changes? Well, specifically, increased body shell rigidity through a combination of spot welding and adhesive bonding, plus additional roll stiffness in the form of a stiffer, and 1.4 mm thicker, 17.3 mm Nismo-tuned hollow rear anti-roll bar. The result is a GTR that's much more willing to turn in, change direction, and be flung about with controlled aggression. The run-flat Nismo-specific nitrogen-filled tires too are seriously impressive. Attached to possibly one of the longest official names in the business, the GTR rolls on 255/40 front and 285/35 rear Dunlop SP Sport Max GT 600 DSST CTT NR1s. And, while there's no question a car like the GTR Nismo belongs on a racetrack, what bends the brain is how much lateral and under-power grip the tires deliver, even when blasting through damp mountain roads in ambient temperatures below 5 degrees Celsius. Even on a totally wet road, you can drive the GTR Nismo with respectable enthusiasm and the tires still offer tremendous grip, remaining resistant to the majority of unwanted sliding. And when you do find some dry roads, well, wow! Stumble across a moisture-free stretch of smooth tarmac and you're immediately aware the GTR Nismo possesses another level of grip and performance. Helped in no small part by the GTR's rear drive bias to Tesla ETS all-wheel drive system, in the dry, you can lean on the tires even more, you can get on the throttle earlier and harder, and you can brake even later. an acronym for Advanced Total Traction Engineering System for All-Terrain with Electronic Torque Split. The complex, and complexly named, system can distribute up to 100% of torque to the rear wheels and up to 50% to the front, depending on speed, lateral acceleration, steering angle, tire slip, and road surface, with additional input coming from yaw rate and g-force sensors. The steering, though, is heavy. And, while you do get used to it to a degree, it never stops being heavy, even in save mode instead of either normal or R. There is feedback through the wheel, however, even in this most epic of guises, the GTR still isn't the most engaging or involving car to drive. It isn't uncommunicative, but the GTR Nismo is no McLaren 570S. Teaming a solid pedal with nice feel and good progression, the Nismo's massive stoppers do a sublime job of strongly and repeatedly pulling the car up, endowing drivers with a ton of confidence. It's fortunate they do too, because the Nismo's engine is angrier and more responsive than the standard GTR power plant, feeling decidedly keener and punchier, especially at higher RPM. There's still plenty of lag below 4,000 revolutions per minute, but from there to the engine's 7,100 revolutions per minute rev limiter, it's not shy about seriously packing on numbers. Power delivery is more linear than you might think, and while the engine's low-end pickup is no match for the likes of BMWs, Mercedes-AMGs, and even McLaren's twin-turbo engines, there's enough flexible torque available between 1,000 to 2,500 revolutions per minute to accommodate St. trips merely pottering around town. Speaking of which, although Nissan claims an average fuel consumption figure of 11.7 liters per 100 kilometers for the GTR Nismo, we saw a highway low of 10.3 liters/100 kilometers and an overall average of 16.4 liters/100 kilometers. With the updated 2017 GTR, Nissan made the decision to move the ultra-quick coupe's pedal shifters from the steering column to the back of the steering wheel. A smart move if you ask the majority of paddle fans. The Model 6-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission also received some mild revisions, however, it's still noisier and more clunky than it really ought to be. A bit of an R35 GTR trademark, and particularly noticeable at lower speeds and when parking, the transmission noises are at least paired with shifts that Nissan claims can take as little as 0.15 of a second to complete, with the transmission in R mode. Plenty quick. For us, the changes aren't quite as rapid or crisp as you'll find in a McLaren 570S or BMW M4 GTS, though they're still pretty bloody brisk, even if some cog swaps are occasionally attached to jolts when decelerating. So, the 2017 Nissan GTR Nismo isn't perfect? Few cars are. Its slightly crude and unrefined transmission lacks some speed, smoothness, and polish. Both the engine and exhaust sound disappointingly restrained. The infotainment system and several interior elements are underwhelming. And of course, the ivory pearl elephant in the room, the GTR Nismo has a simply monumental asking price. All of that said though, the whole car still manages to feel complete. What I mean by that is, it doesn't feel like a gimmick. It doesn't feel like Nissan's just stuck a bunch of go-fast bits and a big wing onto a standard GTR and charged nearly double the price. It's seriously solid, stupendously hooked up, and demonstrably fast. Its limits are so high, and so far beyond the average drivers, that driving the thing on a public road, legally, you're barely ever going to touch the sides of what the GTR Nismo is capable of. You're just not. But, while its combination of outright pace and ability make the Nismo ridiculously brilliant and easily the best R35 GTR yet, it's not the best GTR ever, not in my eyes anyway. Unlike an old R34, R32, or especially an original KPGC-10 Skyline GTR, the Nismo is not a car you fall in love with. It's not a car that steals your heart and leaves you yearning for that next drive. or a car that gets in your head or makes you never want to stop driving it. It's bloody good, but frustratingly, it lacks feels. So, even though I think the 2017 Nissan GT R Nismo is a properly mega car, I don't love it. Perhaps more engine and turbo noise or a better exhaust note or even a manual gearbox could potentially improve things. Sadly, none of those things are likely to feature on the next generation, and likely hybrid-assisted, Nissan GT-R. For now then, I'll just have to keep waiting for the day I can afford the ultimate Godzilla, a Nismo R34 GT-R Z-Tune. So, if you carry a lot of stuff often, the CX-3 struggles to match the overall practicality of just about all of its competitors. It's out on the road where Mazdas tend to shine the most, and the CX-3, for the most part, doesn't disappoint. Under the bonnet is a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine shared with various stablemates like the Mazda 3 and entry-level versions of the larger CX-5, developing 109 kilowatts of power at 6,000 revolutions per minute and 192 Nm of torque at 2,800 revolutions per minute. Compared to its rivals, those outputs are pretty up there for the class. Our tester sends drive to an on-demand all-wheel drive system via a 6-speed automatic transmission. Front-wheel drive petrol CX-3 variants also get the choice of a 6-speed manual for those who like to shift gears themselves. In terms of performance, the CX-3 feels pretty zippy around town, though it can feel a little short of punch when accelerating to freeway speeds. The lack of turbocharging means you have to push it a little harder from takeoff, but it does the job just fine considering our all-wheel drive Akari has a curb weight of 1,356 kilograms. Under load, though, the petrol can get a little whiny. The 6-speed auto does a pretty good job of keeping you in the power band when you need it, and then coasting once you're at speed, providing snappy and intuitive shifts. At 100 km per hour, the CX-3 is humming away at just over 2,000 revolutions per minute, rendering the engine almost silent on the freeway. Wind noise from the windscreen and mirrors is kept to a minimum even at high speeds, however, tire roar can get intrusive on coarser surfaces. Turn up the music a little though, and the latter issue is addressed. Riding on large 18-inch wheels, the Mazda's firmer ride can get a little jittery over successive imperfections at lower speeds, which may get a little annoying for some. It's damped well enough that it doesn't crash over larger bumps, but it lacks the coasting ride over things like speed humps that SUVs are generally known for. The advantage of having such a suspension tune, however, is that the CX-3 feels really darty through corners and exhibits very little body roll, another trait commonly associated with higher riding vehicles. It also feels very planted and stable at higher speeds, making the Mazda feel bigger than it actually is. Speaking of the CX-3's perceived size, it shrinks around town thanks to its compact dimensions and tight steering. Tight city streets and shopping center car parks, areas where this vehicle spends most of its time, are perfectly suited to the Mazda's diminutive figure, while the light yet direct feel through the steering wheel tends to make you feel as if you're driving a regular hatchback rather than a high-riding crossover vehicle. Parking is a breeze too, aided by the standard rear-view camera and large side mirrors, along with the front and rear parking sensors. Rearward visibility can be limited through the slim rear windscreen and thick rear pillar, though. Fuel consumption is another plus worth noting. Despite most of our time spent in stop-start city traffic, the CX-3 returned an indicated 8.3 liters/100 kilometers, which is about 1.0 liters/100 kilometers more than our Mazda 2 Neo long-termer in similar conditions. It may be a little up on Mazda's 6.7 liters/100 kilometers combined claim, but it's not far off the company's urban rating of 8.0 liters/100 kilometers. The standard idle stop, Start system is a contributing factor to the relatively good fuel use figure, and isn't bad considering our CX-3 is fitted with all-wheel drive. With its relatively small 44-liter fuel tank, you can expect a realistic range of around 500 kilometers from each fill. In terms of ownership, the CX-3 is covered by the company's 3-year, unlimited kilometer warranty and lifetime advertised services pricing. Scheduled maintenance is required every 10,000 kilometers or 12 months, whichever comes first, while the first 5 visits will cost between $286 and $314, though an extra $200 spent is required every 40,000 kilometers for the replacement of the cabin air filter, $80, and brake fluid, $120. The service and warranty programs cannot match the pricing of the Koreans nor the longer 15,000 kilometers maintenance intervals, but if you drive around 10,000 kilometers per year, this isn't going to be an issue. Overall, the Mazda CX-3 is still a good choice for anyone looking to buy a small SUV. It's stylish, comes loaded with kit, and offers a range of specification and drivetrain options so that just about everyone is catered for. Add to that the engaging drive experience, and zippy petrol powertrain, and the CX-3 is a compelling urban runabout. However, this top-spec Akari model with all-wheel drive is a little too expensive for such a small car, and lacks the really premium feel you would expect from a vehicle costing this much money in the segment despite the level of standard equipment. For $34,390, you can get the much larger CX-5 Max Sport with front-wheel drive, which forgoes some of the CX-3 Akari's high-end features like a head-up display and adaptive LED headlights, but makes up for them with a still high level of standard equipment while also offering superior interior practicality and a more premium-feeling interior. Within its own competitive set, the CX-3 Akari also struggles to match the Toyota CHR for overall refinement, while also being one of the least practical vehicles in the segment. To conclude, if you love the sexy design and don't mind the compact body, the CX-3 will do you just fine, and you can have a front-wheel drive Akari with all the mod cons for $31,490 with a 6-speed manual or $33,490 with a 6-speed automatic. Otherwise, save yourself some money and get a still well-equipped Max, from $22,890, or S Touring grades, from $26,990. If you can do without the powered leather seats, sunroof, and front parking sensors. Better yet, you can have a Mazda 2 GT in hatchback or more practical sedan bodies, which have essentially the same interior and all the features of the CX-3 Akari without the higher driving position, from just $21,680. Think of all the things you can do with that spare $14,000.